Hello everybody, my name is Amit Dubey. I'm a coach, soft skills and behavioral trainer. If I tell you that these days communication is a must, I'm sure you would agree to it. People who communicate well are actually the ones who are getting paid very well. So that's why I'm sure now we would agree that communication in this era is a must. And in this very module, we are going to learn the types of communication. We will go a little deep inside and we will learn different facets, different aspects that are involved in communication. So in this module, what are we going to learn? Number one is factors to consider when choosing a communication medium. It's very important. You see, if you don't choose the right medium, there are very high chances that your message will not be delivered and it will not have the same amount of impact as much as you want it to have. Next is written communication. Now, this is a concern for a lot of people. I have seen it personally. A lot of people struggle here because in written communication, we don't have face-to-face interaction. We don't have the audio. All we have is these words. Now, just using these words, you need to make sure that you put your tone, put your feelings, and put your intentions right. So written communication is very important. Email communication is one more thing that we will learn now. We live in an email age, and it's absolutely important. We cannot really separate emails with business, separate emails with work, can we? And next thing we're going to learn is verbal communication. Verbal communication. All right, using words, using language. And we'll understand how we can use it to our advantage and how we can actually spellbound people. Okay, sounds interesting? Okay, let's get started. Number one is factors to consider when you choose a communication medium. What are these factors that we need to keep in mind? I'll tell you, I'll share it with you. Number one is cost. We may have high dreams. We may want to launch a product, let's say, launch a service, but then we may not have sufficient funds. Then in that case, we need to find out mediums and methods and modes which are cost effective. Okay, they give the same result or the desired result, but actually are very economical. All right, so number one thing that you need to consider in mind, the factor that you need to consider while choosing a medium is the fact that is it cost effective, is it cheap or is it expensive? Now, I'll give you an example. Let's say if you want to create a campaign in the area that you live in, of any product or service. Now, if you decide to make a TV ad and put it on TV, that'll cost you a lot of money. Okay? Wherein if you decide to do a direct marketing, when you're actually approaching people, you're sending them brochures and pamphlets, and actually going speaking to them, sending them letters or your brochures by post also, if not going personally. In that case, it's going to be more cost effective as against putting it on TV. Alright, and there are high chances of you connecting with your audience more when you do direct marketing than actually putting it on TV. They may see, they may not see your ad. So you see, cost factor is involved here. So you got to be very careful, and the first thing that you need to consider when you're communicating, especially in business, that how expensive or how economical your communication medium is. Next thing is speed. How long it will take to reach its destination. You can't be sending something by post if it is urgent, right? What you would want to do? You would rather, if you want to make a large impact in no time, what would you just put something online and just boom, goes out and people are watching it, right? It has a wider reach and it will be very quick, spontaneous, and zoop, it'll go like it'll spread like a fire in the jungle. Alright, so yes, speed is also very important. If it's urgent, you have to go live, you can use online marketing, which is actually the trend these days, than actually writing them emails, which they may or they may not read instantly, or you're actually sending them something by post, which will take forever to reach them. Secrecy. Yes, so if you decide to send someone a fax, now you understand that fax isn't really a medium where your information can be confidential, right? So the confidentiality can be compromised. Anybody can read it. Okay, so in that case, secrecy is one more important reason that you need, one more important factor that you need to keep in mind when you're actually trying to share something confidential with them. Record. Now, whatever you're sharing with people, whatever you're sharing with the audience, whatever you're sharing with participants or whoever, your colleagues, your bosses, whoever, your juniors, whoever you're sharing it with, do you need a copy? If yes, then you need to choose a medium which will have a copy. Example, email. We can CC, which is carbon copy, or we can BCC, which is blind carbon copy, and we will have a copy. And email is black and white, and it can be used as a record. It can be stored as a record. So if you want to keep a record, make sure that you choose the medium accordingly. In the end, the last factor is destination. Where is it going? Is it internal? Is it external? And how far is it going? Alright, so these are the 5 factors that you need to keep in mind when you're actually trying to choose the communication medium, and figure it out and see the pros and cons and then go for the kill. Okay, types of communication. 2. One based on communication channels, and the other is based on style and purpose. So based on communication channels, one can be verbal, use of language. Alright, so verbal, and the other could be non-verbal, use of body language and expressions. And in verbal, you've got 2 categories. One is the oral, which I'm doing now, and the other is written. They both involve use of language. Alright. Based on style and purpose, you've got formal and we've got informal. I'll give you a little idea about what it is trying to say. So, there are different people who have different approaches. Okay, so let's take, for instance, you might be someone who will have a very informal approach with your colleagues and with your subordinate. You want to mix with them, you want to be with them, and then you want to lead. Alright, but there are people who choose absolutely formal approach when at work with their subordinates, with their colleagues. For example, I had read somewhere that in Germany, they say that people can work alongside each other and not know their first names. They're very, very formal. Okay, so it's your personal choice what kind of style that you want to have. Do you want to have a very informal style or do you want to have a very formal style? Both are right in their own ways. And purpose, obviously, the purpose has to be kept in mind. So example, if you're going for a meeting with your clients, obviously the meeting involves you to come to an agreement with the client and come up with a solution or sell them something or bring out a solution for them. Now, that's going to be a formal. That the purpose is formal, right? So you're going to maintain a very formal style. Okay, what's next? I'm going to show you a pictorial representation. If you take a look here, you will see that it's on a scale. Alright, from richer mediums to leaner mediums, which are not so effective. So the more effective ones, the richer mediums, are the ones where it involves people face to face. Why face to face? Is because if it is face to face, you see, you can check, you can understand, you can judge. Okay, the language which is being spoken, the tone, the underlying meaning, something that's not said and to be understood, the intent. You can look at the expressions, what are they trying to say. You can look at the person and his attire, the artifacts, they will speak something about that person. There is so much that we can achieve when we do face-to-face. That's why face-to-face communication is considered as the richest medium. Next, we would have video conferencing, which is actually as good as face-to-face. Just the fact that they will not be present physically in front of you. Okay, in this, if video conferencing can be done where people are actually in different parts of the country or different parts of the world, which is still considered very effective. And then we have telephone, where it's just the audio. You're just having conference call or telephone where you can talk to people, and there what you've got is the voice, and what you've got is the tone and the mood that you can use to understand what the other person is trying to say, and you can interpret accordingly. Then we have two-way radio, and then we have written and address communication, which is letters and emails. All right, and the least effective medium would be unaddressed documents, which is sent to bulks. so they are called bulk mails or posters, where you just send to a lot of people, and here the problem is you're not sure or you're not aware if the reader or the recipient has actually read it, has actually seen it. So that's again is not very effective, but then we do it for whatever reasons that we have to do it. But before you choose any medium, you have to make certain decisions pertaining to communication. What are these decisions? You have to make up your mind as to what exactly that you're trying to achieve through the communication process that you're starting off with. Okay? So what is it that you're trying to do? You're trying to inform someone about something? Or you're trying to inspire or stimulate something or someone? You're trying to inspire people to take an action. You're trying to inspire people to change. What is it that you're trying to do? You're trying to instruct or explain something. Here I'm trying to explain you something. That's what I have in mind. What else? You can, through your communication process, you could try to persuade someone, convince someone to do something. Right? So you can try to persuade your clients to do something. You can try to convince your clients to buy your product or this product than the other product. Or you can just, your target would be just to amuse or entertain people. Right? We have these comic movies or these programs, and their whole objective is to just entertain you, is to just amuse you. Now, why is it important to understand this thing first? Is because then you are very clear. It's just like setting a goal. You say that I have to, let's say, work on my presentation skills. Now, that's a goal that you've set, and you will do everything to achieve that goal. You'll take up a course, or let's say you will see videos, you'll try and learn, and you will practice, and then you practice, and then you practice, and then you practice, and then you keep practicing it. Right? So that's what you do. Same way when you decide what is it exactly that you want to achieve. That way, you can actually be very clear and very focused, and the results will be a lot better than actually just being in the moment and just delivering it without any thought of it. Okay? Good. Now let's come to the other point, which is verbal communication. Verbal communication is actually very important, is because that's what we do a lot of times. And it is said that 95% of all presentations are not so good. That was a good way to say it, but genuinely speaking, they're very boring. Can't help. So we have to learn to be in the 5%, the remaining 5%, okay? We need to learn to be in the remaining 5% where our presentations are great and not just good, and they're not boring at all. And you will enjoy sitting in your presentation. So let's learn some facts about people. People tend to not listen to things they already know. Well, that's a fact. So if I tell you about something and you already know about it, that means you don't want to listen to it very well, because you know it already. And then you might not want to hear the same thing again, which you already know. Right? Next thing that we need to understand is that there may be many things that people may not know, but then they will still not want to listen about it, is because they are not interested in it. They may not value it. It's not their priority. Alright? And the third thing that I want to share is, if people hear something they don't know, it raises a question. That's important. Well, that's the point that you need to keep in mind. You tell them something they don't know and it raises a question. Obviously, it has to be of interest to them. So, example, let me tell you something. If I say that I can actually help you double your income, what's happening in your mind? Obviously, if I tell you, if I tell you that I'm actually capable of telling you things that can help you double your income. If you earn 35,000 a month, you can earn 70. If you earn 2 lakhs, you can earn 4 lakhs. If you earn 10 crores a year, you can earn 20 crores a year. What if I can do that? Do you? Then the questions will rise in your mind. How? What is he going to say? And am I actually doubling my income or am I not? Is it going to help me? Is it going to not? So when that's a trick that you can use as a good presenter. You can tell them things and ask them things which can actually make them question themselves. And then you can give the answer. And it will arouse the curiosity as well. Alright, let's look at these pictures and look at these gentlemen in the pictures. You've got Winston Churchill, we've got Martin Luther King, we've got the great Steve Jobs, we've got Barack Obama, we've got Narendra Modi ji. Look at these remarkable people. They do stand out, but one thing is common in all of them is that they are amazing communicators. So let's learn from one of these amazing, fantastic people. Let's learn from Steve Jobs, one of my personal favorites. Steve Jobs has delivered some inspiring and memorable keynote presentations in the history. That's a fact. So let's learn from let's learn from him. What is it that they do? Number one, people who are great communicators are amazing storytellers. Yes. When I was a kid, I loved when my grandmother used to sit me down and narrate these stories of gods and goddesses. I used to love it. In fact, when I was a youngster, I was 21, 22 and started off my career. As a kid, I had 2 bosses who used to tell me the stories of their struggle and what happened and then how did they come up in life and what did they do and the learnings. And when they used to tell these things, I used to enjoy listening to them. I used to spend hours sitting next to them and listen to these stories. In fact, these 2 directors, I still meet them and I still love to listen to their stories. So, in a way, we can understand that we all love listening to stories. We've grown up listening to stories and we actually like storytelling. We love to listen to it as well. In fact, I can tell you that I meet a lot of MDs and vice presidents and senior level people, and I realize that they will always share a story to bring out a problem and a solution. You see, all the time, they cannot always tell something to someone directly. They will say it in a form of a story, in a form of an experience. And that's how powerful storytelling is. We actually start liking people who can tell amazing stories. It could be our teachers, it could be our bosses, it could be our parents and our relatives and our grandparents, anybody, our friends. So storytelling is one very important aspect that you need to learn if you want to be a good communicator. And trust me on this, or rather you can go and check for yourself. All these amazing communicators, they have stories to tell. What's next? They paint a vivid picture. What does this mean? I'll explain this to you. I love beaches. I can just sit there in the evenings and I can just enjoy it. So last month I was sitting by the beach and I stood up. It was around 7:38 in the evening and I stood up and I went into the water. The waves came in and the water touched my feet and then it just kind of washed all my worries away. Now, when I said that, did you actually imagine the feet and the water and the beach? I'm sure you did if you were listening to me carefully. Now that's what is important and that's what is painting a vivid picture. Their words will actually make you picturize things. And that way you are living their thoughts. And that way they are actually entering into your mind. So that's what they do. It's very important. You should know this. Next is they connect on an emotional level. Any communication that you want to do, any presentation that you want to do has to appeal to people emotionally. If it's not appealing to their emotions, they're not going to listen to it. We cannot really separate ourselves with emotions. Very few can do that. Okay, so what these great presenters do is that they actually appeal to the emotions, and emotions can sell. And the next thing that great presenters do is that they make people laugh. Now, they're not stand-up comedians, but little humor here and there doesn't hurt anyone. Steve Jobs was obviously known for his little humor. And actually, this is important. You can win hearts if you can make people laugh. A lot of objections by the customers, by the clients can be overcome just by a joke, when you just instill laughter. Alright, so yes, some humor, if you can add, it's gonna work wonders for you. And what else? They engage with the audience. Yes, that's important. What they do is they realize that it's not great to always have a one-way communication. So what they do is they ask them questions, and if they can't really ask them questions all the time, what they do is they ask rhetorical questions. Rhetorical questions are these questions where the answer isn't required from the other person. Why are we working so hard? Now that was a question, but I don't require an answer here. That's just a question which is raised. It's called a rhetoric question. They use this tool as well. And then they will always pass some comments, and they will involve the audience. They make sure that the audience is not sleeping or yawning. That's bad. And if that happens, you've lost. Okay? So that means it's a game. Yes. So that means you need to engage the audience. Very important. But then yes, these guys all started somewhere. Mark Twain, great American writer. We have Steve Jobs. We've got Guy Kawasaki, who's worked very closely with Steve Jobs. We've got, again, American poet Ralph Emerson. These people have said great things. You can look at these thoughts where Mark Twain said, usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. People who think what they're talking about don't need PowerPoint presentation. That's what Steve Jobs said. It's true. But then when you're trying to teach people something, you do need PowerPoint. But he was saying that you need to be very, very sure you're not dependent too much on your PowerPoint. And Guy Kawasaki says, I think that no one or very few people are actually born as good presenters. It's a skill that you can learn undoubtedly. All the great speakers were bad speakers at first because they actually started off, and you start off with something, you obviously make mistakes and you're not the great of the greatest, right? You start off with practice, and eventually and gradually you become a great speaker. Okay, so what are the 3 connects that you need to keep in mind if you want to be a good communicator? Number 1 is you need to connect with people at the intellectual level. Number 2 is emotional level, which I said is very important. Number 3 is physical, the visual connect. Let's see them one by one. The intellectual connect is to do with the logical thinking and the structure of your presentation, understanding the need of the audience. Intellectual, okay, it's to do with mind. And emotional is engaging the audience, giving examples, sharing stories which can connect to their heart. And physical, visual connect is basically using PowerPoints and other aids to help you deliver your presentation well. Alright, we may often think that having good communication skills is all about the ability to speak well, or it's all about speaking. Now, if you think that, then in that case, we are right, but only 50%. Because verbal communication has another very important aspect, which is called listening. So speaking, listening is equal to verbal communication, which is good communication. Right? So you speak and you just don't continue speaking, you pause, you listen. and then you speak again, and then you listen. So these two things are important in verbal communication. Alright, some beautiful thoughts from people like Ben Jonson and Abraham Lincoln. Ben Jonson said that to speak and to speak well are two different things. Absolutely, to just speak and to speak well are two different things. A fool may talk, but a wise man may speak. Beautifully put. Abraham Lincoln said it is better to keep one's mouth shut and be thought a fool than to open and resolve all the doubts. It's coming from people of such high reputation, and we need to take it very seriously. So, when you speak, what do you have to speak? The content. What do we have to keep in mind? Number one thing is the brainstorming. Number two is the presentation. After you've done the brainstorming, you make the presentation. And number three is the final presentation. Brainstorming. Individual brainstorming is the process of you getting your ideas out on paper. So you see, what happens is, when we brainstorm only in the mind, we don't write it, what's going to happen is you will be only able to remember 4, 5, 6, 7 things. But actually very few can remember any number of things. But to do the sequencing and then to generate more ideas, it won't be very, very convenient for a lot of us, not me at least, to do it just in the mind. Okay, we just can't do all the calculations in the mind. So then what we need to do is bring it into the physical life, which is writing on a paper, and then you will be able to bring out more ideas. So what brainstorming does is it actually encourages the unrestricted flow of thoughts. You have it in paper, and then you keep actually going on and then having various permutations and combinations and keep trying so many things which you can't do in the mind alone. And it also facilitates the strategic or comparative evaluation of your ideas. So you can compare two ideas and see which one's better and which one's working, which one's not working. So brainstorming actually helps that way a lot. And then after you've done brainstorming, you have all the ideas in place on the piece of paper or on your computer. What you can do is you can actually start putting it in the right sequential order, orchestrating it well, and then you make a format, choose a format, and then which it can be PowerPoint, it can be, if you want to deliver a speech, it can just be a speech, and then voila, you're ready. Alright, now let's move on to something very important. Let's talk about nervousness. Let's talk about forgetting things when you're nervous. So we may ponder, do we forget due to nervousness, or do we get nervous due to forgetting? Well, that's a good question. So a lot of people would say that we get nervous and that's why we forget. Well, I have an explanation for that. If I have to ask you to speak in front of 10,000 people, A, B, C, D, would you forget it? I'm sure you would not. You'll be nervous a little bit, but then you will not forget A, B, C, D. Why? It's because you've practiced it a lot. Which is my point. If you practice something a lot, you might get nervous, yes, but you will not forget it. So, one of the major reasons is that we don't practice. Nervousness does not cause as much forgetting as forgetting causes nervousness. One of the main reasons, or one of the main causes of nervousness is forgetting, or rather fear of forgetting. In other words, we would get nervous if we knew for certain. In other words, we would not get nervous if we knew for certain that we will not forget our lines in the presentations. Let's come to speaking. How to speak. Oliver Holmes, the poet of America, said, "Speak clearly if you speak at all, and carve every word before you let it fall." Well, that's wonderful. I admire these kind of people a lot. So now let me give you guidelines of how to speak. You need to consider these factors like speed, clarity, punctuation, pronunciation, familiarity, fluency, expression, and voice and accent. Alright, so let's look at the first point first. Speed. While most Indians speak at 170 to 180 words per minute WBM, their foreign counterparts speak at 110 and 120 words per minute. Well, that's like a huge difference. That's why sometimes I've seen that a lot of people, they speak very fast. Now, the reason that they speak very fast and people don't understand them very well is because our WPM, words per minute, is very high. So what I would request you is keep your speed in check, keep it in control. Alright, but yes, you can sometimes go faster and sometimes speak slower depending on the impact. If you want to motivate someone and you want to bring out the aggression, in that case you need to speak faster. Or sometimes when you want to make them understand something, you can speak slower. Okay, next thing that you might want to take care of is clarity. Speech should be loud enough for people to understand, and there has to be a clarity in the voice. Next point is pronunciation, which is the utterance of speech, the way you say it. Always remember that English is not phonetics, which means that it's not written the way it is spoken, and it's not spoken the way it is written. Okay, so what you can do, you can use a good dictionary to understand the pronunciation of words, or you can hire someone who's an expert like me or anyone around to understand the right pronunciation of the language. Familiarity, which means learning new words and then learning to use them properly. Syllable stress. Now, the pronunciations go wrong if you do not understand on which syllable do you exactly have to stress. So like in this example, you see when you say photograph, you stress on pho and not the other syllables like toe and graph. When you say the word photography, it's not photography, it is photography, you stress on TO. And when you say photographic, you say photographic. Okay, so you don't stress on toe or photo, it's grass, alright? So it is photographic. So in the first word you say pho, so photograph. In the second one you say photography, and in the third one you say photographic. Alright, good. Pronunciation. Yes, so in any language there are three things that we need to keep in mind. One is the grammar, second is the vocabulary, and third is the pronunciation. Now if you're dealing only with written communication, grammar and vocabulary is going to do the job for you. But then if you're going to speak, which you will most often do, in that case you need pronunciation. Oral communication. What's the disadvantage? It is quick, yes, you said it and zoom it goes and people understand it, and the feedback is instant. Now, if you understood what I'm saying or if you haven't, I can get the feedback. And disadvantages is there are no records for this. I've spoken something to you, but then there's no record that I said something, and it may be hard for people to remember. Now let's jump to other important aspect of communication, which is written communication. This is something where a lot of people actually find a lot of difficulty. People can write, but not many can write effectively. So that's the difference between just writing and effective writing. So types of written communication. We've got memos, we've got emails, minutes of meeting, notices, company circulars, and in-house magazines. There are many. And we use written communication regularly. So what are the things that we need to keep in mind when we talk about written communication? Number one is it needs a disciplined and systematic approach. Yes. Number two, it's people know you by the way you write. When you send your email for the first time to a client, the client will form an opinion about you in his mind just by the way you write. He's not seeing you personally, he's visualizing you through your style of writing. And there's absence of non-verbal gestures, voice variation, and physical expressions, making it more difficult as compared to verbal. Yes, because there are no such elements involved. All you've got is words, and that's all you have to make an impression. The good thing is there can be a record which can be stored. When you write an email, it is already stored and you have a record. Second thing is when you write, you don't have to remember everything. It's written and you can refer to it whenever you like. And the disadvantages would be there is no instant feedback. The person will read it and then they will respond, and it might take time and may not be confidential. Example, facts, like I said. Basics of writing. Let's see the ABCs of writing. Number one is accuracy. Number two is brevity. Number three is clarity. Accuracy, which means the reader should be able to read and understand everything that you've written clearly. And you need to pay attention to the details and you need to ensure that all the information is correct. Keep it brief. Brevity is keeping it to the point, succinct, crisp. Keep it brief. Don't add unnecessary details. Don't make it too wordy. And when you write the draft, it is important that you read it as the recipient, as the reader, and then you cut the extra frill and take out all the details and take out the words that actually create uncertainty and ambiguity. Write things that are actually adding value to your content, and not just writing things just because you have to write it, or just because you have a platform, or just because you do not know to write it to the point. If that's the case, learn to write it with as less words as possible, and make sure that you choose to write whatever is important and leave out what's not really important and what's not adding value to your written text. Clarity. Be precise on your choice of words. Be very clear. Your words should not add any ambiguity. Again, I'm saying it, they should not add any uncertainty. You got to be very, very sure. You don't say things like try. You say that I will do it, I will get it done, I will make sure. And using words like try, they give you uncertainty. Put each item or points as a separate paragraph. Don't use technical jargons. Jargons are these industry specific words which may be specific to certain industries, and people outside those industries may not understand it. And know the reader if possible. If that's a possibility, know them well and then write accordingly. Stages of effective writing. Number 1 is know the objective well as to why are you writing it. Number 2 is planning. Number 3 is write a rough draft. Number 4 is edit and revise. Very important. Know the objective. Understand why are you writing. What's the purpose of writing? Are you writing to share information? Are you writing to give them a task? Are you giving them a reminder? Or are you replying to a task? Why are you writing? What do you want to derive from your writing? Whom are you addressing it to? These are the factors that you need to keep in mind. Planning. Now, after you know what's the purpose, what's the objective, then you need to plan, because if you don't plan it, it'll just go anywhere and it won't end up being effective, that's for sure. So how do you plan? 1, note down all the points. 2, arrange them in a logical sequence. And 3, link the entire conversation. Right, so you write the heading. Example, these are the pointers that we can raise in the meeting. Number 1, these points, and then arrange them in the order of importance, and then link the entire things. Okay, draft. Prepare a rough draft using the points that you've mentioned, and then make a simple paragraph using correct grammar. That goes without saying. And points to remember: when you make a draft, remember, use simple language when you write. Be specific, avoid vague words. Vague are these words that don't give clarity. Be very specific as to what you want to say and what you want. Use active voice instead of passive voice. Avoid long sentences and paragraph. When you use, I'll give an example of active and passive voice. When you use passive voice, it doesn't sound right. So you say that it will be done by Rahul. And compare this. Rahul will do this. Now this is shorter, better, and Rahul is actually the center of attention. It will be done by Rahul. Here, Rahul is not the center of attention. And it's becoming too wordy anyway. So, while writing a draft, remember one thing is that nobody's going to read it. Only you are going to do it. So, don't be too cautious. Number 2 is just give yourself 10 to 15 minutes, just like brainstorming, and then write down everything that comes to your mind. And then reread what you've written, and then now you start to edit it. You're editing and revising. Check for after you're done making the draft, then you edit it. So number 1 thing to do is just check for the language and grammar errors. Number 2 is just make sure that if it is crisp and clear or no. If not, just trim out the extra frill. Read it as if you have received this message. Read it as if you are the reader of the message, and ask a friend or a colleague to just review it quickly, and so that they can give you the feedback that you need. So let me give you a few tips on how can you write effectively. 3 things that you need to keep in mind. 1, choose the right words. 2nd is constructing sentences. 3rd is designing paragraph. These are very small things, but actually they make huge, colossal, titanic effect. Let's talk about words. You must use familiar words. You don't use words that people don't understand. Keep it simple. The best writers in the world, I would say, are the ones who keep it simple so that anybody can read it and understand it. Example, use words like show in place of demonstration, and combination instead of amalgamation. Choosing short words is a good idea. Use words like quit instead of terminate. Use words like agreed instead of accorded. And remember, I'll say it again, try and not use the technical words too much. Even if you do it, use it with caution. It shouldn't be a barrier in communication. Now, limiting content of a sentence. You see, we as Indians concentrate too much on things that are economical, right? We have a budget and we buy things which keeping the economy in mind, right? I mean, there have been a lot of TV commercials, funny ones, where the person actually, when he goes and buys a car, actually asks what is the average of the mileage that the car gives. So actually, we are a nation actually which saves and thinks of saving a lot, and we want things that are economical. So the point I'm trying to make here is you need to be economical in your words and in the usage of your words as well. Nobody wants a letter, or let's say nobody wants an email which is like filled with words. People get scared, and it is daunting to even look at it or to even start reading it. So be economical on words. Avoid unnecessary phrases just that because you want to have an impact, you want to add phrases. It is not the right thing to do. Avoid unnecessary phrases. Eliminate superfluous words. Use words like friendship in as against camaraderie because it's not needed. Avoid roundabout ways of saying things. I see a lot of people, they go round and round to explain one simple thing. And one last thing that you need to remember is you need to learn to avoid repetition. No, redundancy is not needed. Please get rid of it. Let's discuss designing paragraph. Paragraph should exhibit unity of ideas or topics. You see, one paragraph has to only talk about one thing. You can't talk about finance and marketing in one paragraph at the same time, unless it is really needed and there's some interrelation. So keep one idea or one topic per paragraph. Paragraph, remember, they should be kept short because just because you have the liberty, don't stretch it too much. Paragraph should move the text forward. Alright, so these are the things that you need to keep in mind when you design a paragraph. Now, the tone of your writing. Yes, even when you write, there is a tone. And tone doesn't only exist when you speak. The writing also has a tone and a mood. So your choice of words will decide the tone of your writing. Is it going to be formal? Is it going to be informal? And it's just like the dressing which is done appropriately. When you write to your colleagues or your friends, you can use familiar words and informal tone as against when you're writing to your seniors where you have to use formal tone. Remember, it's not what you said, it's how you say it actually makes the difference. Now, I come to an important topic, which is email writing. Like I said, we cannot separate email writing from our business anymore. So we have this interesting model called AIDA model, which is AIDA. A stands for attention, and then interest, and then desire, and then action. So that's what AIDA model is, and then it can be used very effectively. Let's see how. Number one is attention. So attention is not just gaining attention. Attention also means sustaining the attention. Okay, holding the attention of the reader. And consider this. You open your email box and then there are so many emails and all you see is the subject line and the name. So to get the interest, to capture the interest, all you have is a subject line. So in that subject line, what you can do, you can use catchy words and language to gain the attention of the reader. You can use right words at the right time, which will give you the maximum impact. But remember, in the midst of all this, don't use fake words. Try and be genuine and don't escalate things and don't try to sensationalize things so that when they open your mail and they are highly disappointed because the subject line is too sensationalized, and when they open the content, it's actually nothing. Alright, so we've got this interesting analysis called TIA analysis, where T stands for topic, I stands for intention, and A stands for audience. So obviously, when you're writing, because you have a topic in mind, and you need to be very clear about the topic. There can't be any ambiguity. And then I is the intention. So why are you writing? You're writing to inform, and then if you're writing to inform, then is it of value to the customer? If you're writing to persuade, then what's your key argument? If you're trying to convince your client, persuade your client to buy this product instead of that, then why? What's your key argument? Why should the customer buy your product, which is this product, and not this product, which is someone else's product? Why is this better than the others? You need evidence. Alright, just saying that this is better doesn't work. You need to show them why. You need to give them data and statistics and testimonials. And then if you want them to take an action, in that case, what action do you want them to take, and how should they take the action, and how are they going to get benefited if they take that action? And the last one is audience. Obviously, when you write, you need to keep the relationship in mind. What kind of relationship that you share with the audience, and what's the level of the audience. And next important thing is knowledge. Now you see, if you are trying to tell them something and they do not have knowledge about it, then your approach will differ. And then if you tell them something and then they have knowledge about it, then your approach will differ again. So it's important you know how much your audience knows and what's their knowledge about the topic that you're talking about. And lastly, priorities. You see, some things may be important for us, but they may not be the priority. So in that case, you need to keep that in mind as well. Okay. Now, desire. These are the 7 C's of business phraseology, and it can be helpful if you want to create a desire. Alright. So what are these? When you write, just make sure that you follow these things very well. These are 7 C's and very important, very well known. Number 1 is clear, clarity of thought. You need to be very clear as to why are you writing, and your writing has to be clear, no ambiguity needed at all. Remember that. Number 2 is concise. Keep it to the point. People are not free just to read one email or one piece of writing. They're not free all day sitting for you to write long messages and so that they can read it. No, that's not the case at all. You need to be as concise as possible. Make maximum impact in just few words, like how advertising does. Complete. Third point is complete. You need to give them complete information. If you want them to take an action, write the complete process as to how can they participate, as to how they can act. Correct. Yes, that's important. You need to give them correct information. It can actually be very bad for your credibility if you give them wrong information, wrong data, wrong statistics. So cross-check it twice, thrice, or as many times as you want to till you get it right. Concrete. Yes, when I say concrete, what I mean is there shouldn't be no uncertainty. Whatever you say has to be very clear and has to be very solid and something that they can rely on. Convincing. Yes, no doubt that we are doing all these things just to make sure that you are capable enough to write a convincing email, right? So it's important that you're convincing, it's persuasive, and in the end, remember that nothing beats politeness, nothing beats being courteous. So it's very important that you learn to be polite. You use words like please and you request instead of ordering, no matter what position are you in. Email writing etiquette. Few effective pointers. Number 1, salutation and the sign off are appropriate and they should be in the right place. Appropriate paragraph structuring for a coherent flow. So make sure that the paragraph is structured well and there is a sequence that you have in mind. Write short, precise and appropriate statements and the subject line as well. Remember that the grammar has to be impeccable. You cannot compromise on the grammar and the spelling as well. Take the help of Google if you like. Professional uniform formatting is needed. You can't use multiple fonts and multiple sizes when you write an email. It doesn't look good unless you really want to do it. And remember to respond on a timely basis when you receive an email. It shouldn't happen that you got an email day before yesterday and you're replying them now unless you have a specific reason for it. Action, which is the most important thing. You need to make them act. Otherwise, what's the point? So how do you get them to act? 1 is identify the type of action you want them to take. 2nd, indicate clear timelines. And 3rd, invite to connect for further clarification. So you can say that we need to complete X assignment. That's not enough. You need to give them a deadline. So we need to complete this assignment by the end of this month. And then you can tell them if you need any more clarifications on this, please feel free to call me or write back to me. Okay, now I have something nice to show you. It's called the Minto Pyramid, named after Barbara Minto. Now this can help you in logical writing, thinking, problem solving and presenting it. Okay, so what is it all about? Let's try and understand it. Now the model applies to every type of structured writing in which the purpose is to present thoughts or ideas to the reader. Minto Pyramid principle helps to 1. Think creatively, 2. Express ideas with clarity, 3. Define complex problems, 4. Establish objectives of any document. 5. Understand the needs of the audience. And lastly, introduce the key message effectively. So let me give you a situation. Let me read it out for you. You think of deciding to leave your warm, comfortable room to buy a newspaper. It's cold, it's wintry. You say to yourself, I think I'll go out and get a paper. And you say to your spouse, is there anything you want me to buy while I'm out? And your spouse says, gosh, I have such a taste for grapes after all those ads on TV. She says, as you get your coat, maybe you ought to buy some more milk. You take your coat from the closet as she walks into the kitchen. Let me look into the cupboard to see if we have enough potatoes. And oh yes, now we are running out of eggs. Let me see. Yes, we do need potatoes. You put on your coat and walk towards the door. Carrots and maybe some oranges. You open the door. Butter, you walk down. Apples, you get into the car, and sour cream. And then you say, is that all? She said, yes dear, thank you so much. Now, how many items did your spouse ask you to buy? Well, remember, difficult, right? A lot of items. So in that case, this is how this paradigm can help you. What you can do is you can group them. If you can group them, you will need to remember only 3 things. In this case, dairy products, fruits and vegetables. Now your mind has to remember only 3 things. You just go to the shopping mall, just go into the section where you get these 3 products, which is the dairy product, and then the vegetables and the fruits. Right, so now you can just see it and you can buy it. That's how simple it is, and that's how this pyramid helps you. Now, how come this can help you that way? You see, when the mind is presented with 4 or 5 items, it starts grouping them into logical categories to retain them. That's how the science behind remembering things work. The easiest way to represent these groupings is in the form of a pyramid. I'll just tell you how. Now look at this structure. The box at the top, which is the gray box, it actually is a summary of what is going to happen, or what is it that you're going to be discussing. In this case, it was buying things from the market. And then that's the main thing. That's the summary. That's a single thought. Okay. And then what you do is then you categorize it. So one was buying dairy products, and then the vegetable, and then the fruits. And then under that you have your paragraphs, and under that you can have sentences and your ideas. That way it'll be an effective way of writing. It'll be structured properly, and it can be easily understood by the audience. So 3 rules to remember to form a pyramid structure. 1, ideas at any level in the pyramid must be summaries of the ideas grouped below them. Okay, remember the gray box, one has to be the summary, and then we can have boxes below it. Ideas in each grouping must always be of the same kind of idea. So when you're talking about vegetables, just talk about vegetables. Ideas in each group must always be logically ordered. Now this is just an example of vegetables. Now there is no sequence of importance, but generally there will be, when you're writing about your business, when you're writing about the work, obviously there will be things which will be important, so you need to put those points first and put them in a logical sequence order. Now, visual communication. When you present, visual communication is a must and you cannot ignore it. It helps you with the double impact. So, visual communication, the good things about them is it is easy to understand, and you can show trends and comparison easily when you use visual communication. Now, the drawbacks are some people may not understand it, and it takes time to prepare. Now, rules of preparing charts and graph. Obviously, remember to give it a title, because then people will not know what it is all about. If you're presenting it, great, but then if you're just sending it, they will not know what is the graph trying to say and what is it all about. Label the y-axis and the x-axis properly. Now, let's look at some of them. Number 1 is bar chart. It is a series of bars and used for comparing quantities. Now, that's an example here which is shown. And then we have line trend graph. It is a chart that uses lines used for showing changes over a period of time. As we can say here, it shows the change of temperature. And then we've got pie charts. These are also very common. It is a circle divided into segments used to show percentage or proportions. So these are the various tools of visual communication. You can use these tools effectively to deepen the impact, to clarify what you're saying even further. This will give them a wider understanding and very clear picture. Now, I'm sure that these tools that we have learned in this module, you will use them effectively. The do's and the don'ts that I've shared with you, the models that I've shared with you, you will use them effectively. You will follow them and you will practice it, and then you will practice it, and then you will keep practicing it, and then you'll keep practicing it more till you get the right impact, until you become an effective communicator, until the time when people start appreciating your communication skills. Thank you very much.